Okay. Looks like we are working to me. Sweet. Okay. Hell yeah. No angry pop-ups today, so we are good. So what do we got today? Well, I was gonna play Frostgrave today, but I went out to Donkey. For people that don't know, Don Quixote is like a Japanese Walmart, but also kind of crazy. Um, I went out to Donkey and they had motherfucking skeletons. Yeah. How cool is that? Um, so obviously I had to get a box or two of these awesome skeletons. So these are part of the 30-minute fantasy line, which is a line of like knight and like fantasy gunpla, um, where they're like kind of like robots. Uh, to be honest, I think they trigger that bionicle part in my brain where it's like fantasy but also robots, and I just really really like that. So I freaking love the 30-minute missions line. They're like basically the only thing that's on my desk these days. I have these. I have a couple real Gunpla, and then I have whatever models I'm painting. But yeah, majority of my desk is fucking 30-minute missions of some kind. Um, and they're just absolutely wonderful. They all run off the same 3mm peg, so them and 30-minute sisters are all interchangeable. Similarly, the 30-minute mission, hello, um, armor core kits, which are like probably my favorite thing to paint right now. They also run off the same 3mm peg, so really you could intermix them, but it feels like blasphemy to intermix anything with the armored core kits. Like they're just kind of like a dream in themselves. But um, I had gotten. Let me get those two out of the way. I had gotten Scalabones. So yeah, these are so freaking cool. Um, just from the design to how they move and pose and everything. They come with a bunch of like cool kind of weapons. Look how cool that is. Like that's a twist joint right in there as his spine. Right? Like yeah, this isn't how real bones work, obviously, because it's not connected to the back. But like it's super cool, and he has a ton of movement. His little mouth opens and closes. All kinds of good stuff. 10 out of 10. Really, really awesome. Like robot skeleton dude. Um, However, this guy has so much little detail on him that's just not coming through. So I was so motivated by how awesome these guys are that I decided to change my plans for today and actually paint one of these up instead. Um, because I thought that would be pretty sweet. So, first thing we got to do is I actually have to take him apart a little bit. That's because you can see he's pretty much all one color plastic except for his eyes. Now, I don't know if I want to keep the red eyes. I probably don't. What I actually probably want to do is I probably want to paint the socket in here a dark purple and then have the beady part of the eye like a neon pink, I'm thinking. Um because these guys are meant to go with the Necros Knight, who in theory is like their necromancer or like Death Knight who's supposed to go with them. Um I think they're implying this guy's kind of frosty, but I don't know. The necromantic stuff, like sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's purple. Really kind of depends on the game. So maybe we could do it in blue with like a fluorescent blue eye in there and maybe like icy. Maybe that would be kind of cool. But yeah, first thing we gotta do, we gotta take his face apart. So the face is only a couple of pieces. Um, so I just gotta. You can see the seam is even intended to be like the crack in the skull. How fucking cool is that? Look at that. It's so cool. Mine is in the mail. Nice. Yeah, Donkey had them. They had a huge stack of them. Actually, I probably should feel shame for this, but I don't. I actually bought 2 boxes of them because I'm like, I know I'm gonna want to paint these because they're really cool. Um, because I was looking at them on Amazon and they were like $80 a piece on Amazon. I was like, nah, bro, I can't do that. But dude, like 25 or 30 bucks or whatever they were at Donkey, hell yeah. I mean, it's higher than yen price, yeah, but we're in America and shipping sucks. So, all right, so I'm just gonna pull his eyes out in case I want to keep the red eyes. I don't know 100% what I want to do with the eyes yet, but just gonna pull them out for now. And I'm gonna put his head back on. So, how are we gonna paint this guy today? Because you can see he's not primed or anything like that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a lazy paint on this guy. So, um, a lot of the gunpla and stuff, right? Like they have all these cool joints and all, and when you paint them, they get kind of a little bit fragile. You're kind of worried about it scraping and stuff. And this guy's base colors are all good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a mix of dry brushing, and washes, and then more dry brushing to actually not like full paint this guy, but to add color modulation and kind of like additional color to his details. So we're doing kind of like a lazy gunpla paint. Now the big benefit of this is that afterwards, the coat's going to be pretty good because I'm going to top coat it afterwards. So I'm really not going to have to worry about anything scratching, because if it does, you'll just see the plastic color underneath and it's a good color. Um, uh, and it means that like, because I kind of want to play around with these on my desk. They're really just super mega fun to pose. Um, so Uh, so by doing that, like kind of quote unquote lazy painting, where we skip some of the joints and stuff like that, we're not going to really have to worry about anything kind of rubbing off, and we can kind of just like tool around with him on our desk. So, step one, build our skeleton. We are going to be building a skeleton today as well, because after the washes, he's going to need to sit for a couple of minutes. So we're going to build one while he sits. So, because each box actually has 2 skeletons in it, which is amazing. So first off, we need to get some kind of color modulation down before we do any kind of wash to this. A wash is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting because there's tons of little cool detail in here. But we need to get some kind of color modulation in there. So I'm going to use kind of a dirty off-white, kind of old bone color. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a overbrush. So this is like a heavy dry brush where you don't necessarily worry if the color gets in the recesses like you do with a dry brush. The intent here is to just some areas you end up smearing. It's like a lace. Let me make a clean spot in there. So I'm gonna put some on my brush, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna swirl it around. I'm not really gonna pull paint off, but I do want it kind of like this, where it's kind of like mixed throughout the bristles. And then we're just going to start hitting our skeleton guy, right? And you can see this is kind of like a very like dirty old skeleton color. But you can see we're not hitting everything, right? We're just kind of hitting some areas. Right? And we're going to have a little bit better coverage in some areas and other areas. Like that. Now, I like to paint gunpla together, right? So like when I paint my 30-minute, or when I paint like the AC kits, right? Like or here. All right, so here's a Domtropin. Uh, right. So when I painted this guy, I assembled him and then painted him together. Right now he can still pose and move around and everything, because I was kind of smart in how I did all the joints. But I like to paint the model as one thing, because I kind of feel like you get a better impression of it as a character and can kind of get an idea of overall how your model's going to look. However, with that being said, we are going to pull them apart for 1 second, because I want to get up inside the ribs a little bit with some of this. Now our wash is going to make this not just pure white up in there, and then we are going to do some kind of darker washes afterwards, but we still want that same color modulation up there. So, all right. Yeah, you can kind of see we're getting kind of a much more of a like dirty old kind of worn skeleton look. So let's go ahead and let's just knock out one area. So we'll just do like an entire leg or something and just sort of go from there. Mix and we paint. Now this is going to get all over your fingers doing this. That is the nature of overbrushing. Right? You can see we're getting it kind of just like all over the place. But you can see that it's giving us color modulation and it's giving us some different color in these areas, right? So it's not just the standard plastic color. You can zoom in a little, I guess. There we go. All right. All right, you can see it's nice and quick. Got to get the bottom of his feeties. The inside of that leg. Got to get his butt and his hips. All right, we're getting a lot of areas, but you can see that that plastic color is still under there, right? Like it's not, we're not fully covering everything, right? Even if we're hitting majority stuff, right? Now this kind of painting works really well when you're doing terrain as well. This kind of like overbrush to wash to dry brush that I'm going to be doing on this model. It works super good on terrain. So if you ever need to paint your warhammer terrain and stuff, this is a really, really good method to do it. All right, I want to make sure we get inside the hands as well. There we go. And get his shoulder under there. Get all around the arm. Get the hands. Get his face. Get that neck. Gonna knock his head off. We literally knocked his block off. Gonna put his block back on in a second. Yeah, so down in the eyes, this kind of brushing is going to be really hard to get that kind of area, which is fine because we're going to want to, do some kind of painting in there. So after the washes and after the dry brushing that's going to follow, we'll paint in the eyes. All right. Okay, let's see. Oh, gotta get the bottom of the head. Go. But yeah, it's nice and easy, quote unquote, lazy painting method. Give me one sec. Gotta sound this paint bottle. All right, let's use up the rest of this paint. Go. There we go. Underneath that arm, underneath the ribs, side of the leg. Just gonna kind of Try to use up the rest of this paint real quick that I just got out. Just hit a couple more areas on him as we can. Top of the shoulders. You can see the paint's still kind of sticky, so in some spots my fingers are kind of pulling it off, which is fine. Because again, we're not going for like a neat, nice coverage, right? We are just making sure we get some color modulation and color difference for our next steps. All right, that's what we want out of this. All right, here we go. And that's still really, really, really white. There we go. Okay, and then there is our overbrushed skelly bones. All right, so he's already looking more dirty, which is pretty good. All right, already looks more like a skeleton that came out of the dirt, which is pretty cool. All right, we got a little bit more of a living dead action there going on, but still several steps to go before we are all done. So next step is to throw this guy aside because he needs to dry for a minute or two. Now, overbrushing doesn't put a lot of paint generally on the model, so it dries very quickly. But it still needs time to dry before I go putting a wet wash on top of it, because that will just really, really reactivate the paint and the wash won't behave correctly. So we need to give him a couple of minutes. So while we're doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start working on his weapon. Now, he has this chain thing too. I don't know what I want to do with that yet. So I was probably not going to mess with that today, but we're going to work on his weapon. Now, this kind of like lazy gunpla painting, one of the things I like to avoid painting when I do this is stuff like weapon handles, because weapon handles tend to like get used and interacted with a lot, right? Like if I want him to switch out different weapons and stuff. So because of that, I tend to try to leave them as close to the plastic color as possible. However, something like a weapon, yeah, it's like a bandolier. You can like hang the other weapons and stuff off it if you wanted, which is pretty cool. It's also kind of looks like a chain, which is pretty neat. But I'm not super sure how to paint it yet, so we're just going to leave it alone for now. But one of the things we want to do is just paint in this blade. So this is Death Metal from Army Painter. I absolutely love this color. It's a really, really good one. And it works really good for like the back part of swords, right? Like this big cleaver thing here, right? Like we want a silver edge to this essentially, but we want the metal to kind of like change, right? We want this like darker kind of wrought iron color because that's what this kind of looks like going into a silver where the blade is. But to start that off, we need to start with the wrought iron color. And then we'll probably also rust this up. We'll probably have enough time to do that today as well. So step one is getting that dark kind of wrought iron metal color down. Let me grab his other weapons. He also comes with a shiv and a big shiv. And you can turn any of these into a polearm if you want, even the cleaver. So you could have like a halberd kind of, which is pretty sweet. But in this case, we'll keep them as hand weapons while painting them. Now you get 2 duplicate skeletons, right? So you get 2 sets of the same sprue for the skeletons. Each skeleton is made out of 2 sprues, so you get 4 sprues there, and then you get 1 sprue of weapons. So you don't get 2 bandoliers and 2 cleavers. You get 1 sprue of weapons that has 3 weapons on it. 3 weapons, the bandolier, and the polearm. Which honestly works pretty good, so right? Because these are kind of resurrected, like, skelebones. You probably don't want them to be super mega armed to the teeth, right? So, yeah. So we're just going to go ahead and put these on there. Now, you're probably like, man, that paint is sticking to the plastic very well. Yeah, it is. Much better so than like a Warhammer miniature. It's because during the crafting process, Bandai doesn't do one of the steps of preparing plastic. So normally when you make a plastic injection mold, there's a secondary step of cooking the model like a second time in the mold. Bandai doesn't do that. And the reason they don't do that is because it makes the plastic filled with tons and tons of tiny little like stress fractures. Now, you'd think that's probably a bad thing, right? But the truth is it actually makes paint stick really, really well. So that's why they don't do it, which is pretty cool. All right, there we go. We got all his weapons all painted up, so that's pretty good. Let's give him 1 more minute and we'll start building a part of our other skelebones. So these are instructions for the skelebones. The nice thing is the way that he's laid out on the sprue, we're not actually going to need the instructions. So you can kind of see everything here. This is all of his legs. Everything here is all of his arms. On this one, this is his pelvis. This is his body and neck. This is extra stuff. And then this is his head. So you can kind of see they sort of broke it out like logically on the sprue, which is pretty darn cool. All right, so what we'll do is we'll put his feet together, and then we'll get to our washes because our dry over brush skeleton should be good enough by now. I think it's hard to tell. My fingers are tacky. Still a little tacky. All right, maybe we'll do the whole leg. Yeah, dude, I was so excited when I saw these at Donkey yesterday. My husband had to go to town to get a haircut, and I usually drive him just kind of so we can bullshit on the drive, right? Like, I don't usually go to town for any like real reason. I usually just go just to BS with him while we're driving. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get Donkey, and I'm gonna get some snacks for the weekend, and I'll get us some breakfast for tomorrow, and some stuff I need for work and the house. Just kind of like errand running. And they have a big gunpla section that's usually pretty sweet. I was not expecting them to have these awesome skeletons and necromancer though. So I was big happy when they did. Because I had been looking at these online. Because Amazon actually had a decent price for the necromancer, but they didn't have the skeletons. So I was like, I kind of really want to build a necromancer too, but I'm like, I'll hold off because I can't get the skeletons yet, and yeah. All right, so yeah, you can kind of see I'm just literally clipping everything out. And that's just because all this stuff just goes to the legs. So we'll just kind of put him together like a Lego kit afterwards. There we go. All right, and that's all his arms for later. Appreciate you. 85 from a suburb seller, which is nuts. Yeah, same. I rushed after soccer. Wouldn't have it without your text. Nice. Yeah, it's just super cool. So super cool. Oh shit! Gotta put the ankle on him. Okay, yeah, this goes like that. So like I guess technically you could leave some of this stuff off if you wanted like a variation of your on your skelebones, but I don't know. There's a bunch of neat little bits and bobs. So and this, let's see, you go in there, you go in there, or no, you actually go in there. Okay. See, that's what I get for not following instructions. I totally built them wrong. This is what I get. Oop. There we go. We'll put this leg on like that. All right, and this is our knee. Okay. And this goes like that. And this. Where do you go? Do you go here? Yes. Nope, that's wrong. That's right. There we go. We got there in the end, fam. Okay. Hell yeah. Same thing. Round 2. Electric Boogaloo. Alright, and the nicety is that this is going to give us a second completed skeleton to compare against when we're done painting. So we'll have kind of a before and after of Skelebones, right? Which will be pretty neat. So you can kind of already see how it's going, right? You can kind of already see that big difference there. So pretty sweet. And now, yeah, he's still a tiny bit tacky, but it's good enough. It's good enough. Now we're gonna hit him with some Wonder Juice. So what we're gonna break out now is the Strong Tone. So Strong Tone is a brown-based wash. I would not call it a sepia wash. It's more of just like a pure brown. Has a very slight amount of yellow in it, but not a lot. Now, what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to basically mix it 50-50 with thinner. Or let me rephrase that. 4, 5. Not thinner. I'm going to mix it 50-50 with medium. Now, thinner spreads out the space in the medium. Whereas just adding more medium adds more like empty space. So it means that the color isn't as like clumped without spreading out the like the kind of like the adhesion of the paint. What I'm actually using here specifically is speed paint medium because I don't like their wash medium. 4, 5, 6. Did I do 5 or 6? Close enough. I don't really like their wash medium. It's too thick for me. So I'm just going to mix it all up. There we go. This is going to give us our 50-50 wash. And we're just going to go over the entire guy. Right? And it's going to get in all the crevices. It's going to get in all the little nooks and crannies. And it's going to add a little bit of extra nasty to our skelebones. Now I'm going to try to do sort of like piece by piece here. So like I'm going to try to do an entire leg. I'm not going to do it like, oh, I'm doing this side and then that side, sort of like how I did the overbrushing. I'm going to try to do it as a piece so that way as it goes around, you can do things like make sure we get in there. Right. That way as it goes around, it's not like overly sitting in one area, right? Like I didn't like super heavy apply it to the front, but not as kind of heavy as the back. It'll stand out more if you do it, if there's a difference between a piece versus a difference between the pieces, if that makes any sense. So like if his arm and his shin are slightly darker colors and differences, it's not going to be as apparent as if two sides of his shin are different colors. So it's one of the reasons we want to like make sure that we get, or we kind of walk around, because we don't want to wind up with a situation where like, you know, the front of his body is like really dark and the back of his body is like really light or something silly like that. Like that's not what we want. So we're just going to go kind of piece by piece here. But you can kind of see I'm just kind of slopping this on with willing abandon. And it's going ahead and it's sitting in all the lines. Now, I do want to be careful with it because you can kind of see it right here. There's that pooling right there. I don't really want that kind of pooling. You can also see a little bit it's reactivating the paint because I didn't let it sit long enough, right? You can kind of see it pulling some of the paint off there. So just going to have to be a little bit careful with that. Usually if you let it sit for an hour or more, you won't ever have that reactivation problem of reactivating paint underneath. But since I'm on stream, I don't have that luxury. Don't have that luxury. So I just gotta be aware of it as I'm going, you know. Kind of the goal there. Now this stuff, because it is a wash, it will get darker the longer it sits. And that's because as it dries, it reflects less light to your eye. So that's why it gets darker. And I want to get inside that knee as well. There we go. Try to feather out that error I made there a little bit. All right, and we can kind of see that we are making some progress on our skelebones here. Now, after this, we're going to be doing a light dry brush over the whole guy, kind of how we did our overbrush, but specifically aimed at the higher kind of areas, and with not as much paint on our brush. So that will pick him up from being this like super dark, I just crawled out of the ground color, to being a little more kind of like polished bone. 4, 5, 6. Who would you say is your top 3 favorite Gundams or mobile suit of all time? Personal favorites are the GPO-1FB. Okay, that's a good one. The full burner is cool with the back wings, or the back like thrusters. The color separation on that one's really good too. 2, 3, 4, 5. GPU, let's see. God Gundam from G Gundam. God Gundam's good from G Gundam, but I mean, if you're gonna mention G Gundam, I feel like you have to mention the best Gundam from G Gundam, which is clearly the Tequila Gundam, followed by the Windmill Gundam. joking aside, I actually love the Gundam Nero from G Gundam. I don't know why the like mint and the red just really speaks to me. And the Gundam Rose. I've always loved the Gundam Rose. What was the third one? Gundam Exia from Gundam Double O. I agree. I actually love the Exia. Like, it is as well as one of my favorites. Um, it's funny because when I first watched Gundam Double O, I actually didn't like the Exia design. It was too sharp. Um, but I think the lore behind it and kind of the like twist for it that comes up later on, I think is really really interesting. So it's kind of why it made me love it. No, my number one Gundam would be the Barbatos. I absolutely love the Barbatos. Um, I love that over the series, you watch it transform from being like a person into an animal, right? And basically become like a thing, because that's kind of what happens to the kids, right? They get drawn into bigger and bigger conflicts, um, that they kind of have like no business being in and are just kind of like toted around, um, as like a thing. And I think that's a nice analogy. It's also a really good analogy for mental health, because the Barbatos enables enables some amazing things and some wins that the Tekkadan should never have had. And they only had them because of the Barbatos, but it comes with a cost, right? Like it actively takes away from the pilot. Um, and I think that's a really interesting analogy of mental health, um, where there is like a benefit, but at the same time, there is a very real cost to the person, you know. And I just think that's really neat. And I think it was very well done in the anime. Even season two, you see the same kind of transformation, which is cool. Even though season two definitely has its problems. Let's see. Barbatos, what would be my number two? I mean, the Goof Custom's always a fan favorite, right? It's a beautiful mobile suit. It's part of an amazing action sequence. Um, it's really hard to go wrong with that. But my number two is actually the Bylorant Custom. Um, I love the weird design of the Bylorant Custom, and when you see it, it's in one of the best action series in all of Gundam, or action scenes in all of Gundam. That Remnant fight is just it's like chef's kiss. Like they um they did a phenomenal job with that. Like that's definitely one of the best fight scenes in all of Gundam, and the Bylorant has a really cool role in that. And I love the kind of like topsy turvy design of it. It's a real like mishmash of features and stuff that is not pretty, and I like that. Um, oh, what would be number three? Hmm. Number three is a tough one because I really would like to pick the Gushan or the Kamaris because I love those designs. The tier one Kamaris with the fucking lance. Oh, it's amazing. Um. Oh, what would number three be? Tall geese. Yeah, number three's got to be tall geese. I love the fact that it's like a souped up prototype suit, like a lot of the Gundams are supposed to be. And you actually see that, like you watch them basically put the fancier armor on like a default suit. I think that's really neat. Um, I love the fact that it's like this relic that's, trying to be literally drug out of a museum to keep up with the enemy. Um, I think that's really cool. And again, it's a mobile suit that takes a really heavy toll on its user, um, because like it legitimately kills the first person who pilots it. Um, and I think that's super cool. Also, the fact that it's like, I don't know, essentially carrying the guns that the default troop suits carry, but just using them better. I think that's really interesting as well. Um, because it carries a dauber gun, and the Leos actually also carry the dauber gun. Um, and that's really neat, I think. So yeah, number three would definitely be Toggies. I might go as far as to say Trey's Kushranagra's Toggies 2 is number three, because I like the colors better, and I think the big head crest is really neat. But yeah, definitely Toggies. All right, let's see. Did we miss anywhere with wash? Let's get some wash down inside the inner parts just to make sure we got down in there. Make sure we got all the lines and stuff. So yeah, you can really see he's getting really kind of weathered and knackered now, which is good. That's what we want. All right. Well, that's our wash done for Mr. Skellebones. Okay, so he needs to go and he needs to sit over here for a little while, because he's got to dry before we do the next step. Now, because of that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build the other Skellebones. Oh, actually, um, we're gonna paint the edges on the other swords real quick. That's what we're gonna do. All right, Josh, stop stickling. All right, you got stuff to do. Let's see. So this is chainmail from Vallejo. Literally any silver will do for this. This is just the one I have. So we're gonna do kind of a heavy dry brush of silver here. So kind of the same thing as we did for the overbrush, but not entirely. We're going to pull some of it off and keep some of it on the thing. All right. And what we kind of want is we kind of want this sort of like silver, kind of like wornness to it. That's what we want, kind of all over it. Like, oh, not on the camera there. Sorry. Yeah, we kind of want this kind of like silver streak with the dark color underneath. That's what we're going to look for. Whoop, too much there. Too much there. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Now, the next step for that is let's make those rusty. That sounds like fun. Now, there's two kinds of rust we could use here. Army Painter has a dark rust and a light rust. I've actually kind of not been using the dark rust. What I've been doing is I've been using the light rust and then using a rust tone over top of it. Um, and I think it works really well. So, yeah, this is fresh rust. Sorry, not light rust. Fresh rust. So we're gonna go ahead and what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some really ugly like patches along this thing, and it's gonna look like crap. And it will 100% look like crap. And this is one of those moments where it's like you have to trust the process because like this is gonna look bad, and I know that. But the combination of this and the next step should look really cool in the end. Um, because yeah, so this fresh rust is actually a technical paint, and that means that it basically does stuff besides just do painting. It actually has little bits of, I think, like foam in it, so it actually gives it like a texture. Um, that's one of the reasons you can kind of see I'm like stippling it on, right? So just kind of like dabbing at the model here and there, um, because I want to keep that texture on it. And if you brush it, you lose a lot of the texture. So because it is kind of this weird thickness. But because of that, you also it also is going to need a little bit more to dry, so that's why we're doing it now. All right, so kind of see this going around, and it looks like crap right now, but it won't in a little bit, promise. Because since this gets a texture when you hit it with a wash, oh man, it looks awesome. And we're going to end up with these really light areas of rust and kind of like these darker areas as well. And it's going to look really cool. But right now, looks like crap, and I recognize that. All right, back to building our other skelebones. So this guy, the skelebones, uses basically the identical joint sets of our friends, the 30-minute missions or 30-minute fantasy guys. Um, and that includes construction of how the hands work. So the up and down kind of gear holding hand only has that up and down bend, whereas the other hand has that 2-point swivel hand. So kind of interesting. It also means that like if you wanted to, let's say, you wanted to give your skeleton like a dude glove, but you wanted to give a guy like a bone hand, right? Like, I'm a skeleton knight now. You know, you could do something like that, right? So, um, following that logic, you could also mix all the armor from those guys on to your skelebones. So if you wanted like partially armored skeletons, you could do that. Thus is the power of the 30-minute fantasy. You can only have fantasy for 30 minutes. After that, it becomes sci-fi. All right. But yeah, just like we did before, we're just going to clip everything out because we know these are all the arm pieces. We're not going to super like worry about which one is which. Partly because I already built one of these skeletons, right, and they go together identically. But also because we really don't need to, right? We can infer what these are. All right, so like this is shoulder joint, shoulder joint, shoulder joint, upper arm, lower arm. One thing to be aware of with the lower arms is the There's kind of like a more empty area on the inside that goes on the inside of the arm that doesn't go on the outside. So it's just something to be aware of. It's what is that? It's the ulna and radius, right, in the arm, or ulna and something. Um, I don't get to use all my bio college stuff anymore. Oh, sometimes I miss it. Or like drug interactions, that was fun too. Not like having drug interactions, but like learning about them. But computers are also fun, and so is teaching, so I can't complain. But don't fault me if my bio knowledge is a little sketch nowadays, so I haven't used it in 10 plus years. Alright, let's see. So this skeleton, the other skeleton's right-handed, so this one's going to be left-handed. That's just a nice little way to add some variation between our skelebones. Alright, and then... Yep. Bonk, bonk. And this, does it go like that, or does it go like that? No, it goes here. No? Where does that go? Survey says it goes like that. Okay. There we go. That's... Yeah, see, this is the inside part, and we want to make sure that's on the inside, like that. This arm might actually be backwards. It is backwards. This is the... Yeah, okay. There we go. There we go. Now it's right. So you get the better bend because you got the cutout there, and then like that. So scatter bones, scatter bones. All right, so there we go. All right, there's our arms. Okay. These are extra attachment bits if you want to attach additional stuff to your skeletal bones. So this one here goes around the top of the leg and gives you a peg if you want it. This one is for the top of the arm, right there. And this one is for the wrist right here. Honestly, if you use the ones from whatever armor you want to attach, like say we want to put this on our guy, you'll get a cooler looking result because then it looks like the armor has some kind of strap on it, as opposed to the strap being made out of bone, which is confusing for a lot of reasons. So like that looks a lot cooler. So I'd recommend doing that. I wouldn't recommend super paying attention to those other pieces, to be honest. But you do get them if you want them. You can also use them for other characters as well. So if you wanted to have white connector pieces for like other guys, you could do that. The only thing you can't do is the upper leg one is very skinny, or it's like the hole for it is very small. So just be aware of that. All right, all right, all right, all right. Making progress. Let's see. That's the robot hand. So yeah, so you're gonna wind up with some extra hands for your gunpla as well, which is nice. All right, now this is our pelvis, so we'll go ahead and build that. And then these are some of our connectors. We will go ahead and build those as well. There we go. Now we're not going to have to worry about being off camera. And by the time we're done this, our wash should be all dry. And we can pick out what bone color we want to use after that. I got a couple of options. I think we're going to do a really light, kind of like drier bone, kind of like his default bone color, I think is going to be our goal. All right. Nope, that's wrong. There we go. There's a pelvis. There's a leg. There's another leg. All right. Okay, and this is his neck. And then this is, let's see. Okay. One of these is the upper spine, one is the lower spine connector. The one with the ball joint is the upper spine connector. And then when I build this guy, I'm going to leave his eyes out because I'm going to paint him like the other guy as well, so I don't have to bother pulling them out. Because I would like a pair of the skeleton that match. Oh, we actually have some leftover wash still. Maybe I'll dab that on the weapons really quick. Sorry, I just noticed. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that while we got it. Yeah, you can see because it's not fresh anymore. The wash is much thicker. It'll add a nice initial layer of dirt to these, which is kind of cool. Now the other rust still isn't fully dry, so I'm trying not to get too much on it, but a little bit won't hurt. Yeah, you can see how that kind of brings out the detail and stuff. Like the little pock marks and pivots and divots and stuff that are in these. Actually, you know what? Let's give the skeleton two stabby hands. We'll give him two of the stabby weapons. I'll give him the dagger and the little sword. All right, what were we doing? Oh, we were building the waist. That's right. Let's see. Little peg. And then big peg. Is that right? Maybe that's backwards. Let's check. Yep, that's how it's supposed to go. There we go. And then we got ourselves a body here. And we got ourselves the neck. Neck goes in like that. And then our body goes like this. Bonk. And then we clamshell our torso. And we do our shoulders. Now the scapulas, I think that's what the shoulder blades are called, right? They're scapulas. There we go. They go, like the little wing on them faces towards the arm. Bonk. Bonk. All right, coming along, Mr. Skellbones is. Just gotta do his head now. And then we can hit our other Skellbones with his next dry brush. Now, I also have a darker wash that I think I'm also going to do, and I'm going to do it on like the inside of the bones. But I want to do the lighter wash first. Or the lighter dry brush first. I love that basically you can't assemble these wrong. Like the pieces are so well like toothed and fitted. It's so nice. I say as I try to assemble it wrong. Jesus. Ay, this is my life. There we go. Scare the bones. All right, and since I showed a comparison with the Skellbones with the other step earlier, Skellbones after his wash. So you can really see that our Skellbones is he getting knackered, which is good. That's what we want. So, all right, next step. All right, we could do Warrenstone or Company Gray. I could also break out a pure white as well. I think Warrenstone is going to be kind of close to the color we started with, just a little less tan. So I think we want to push that further, and I think we're going to go up to Company Gray. Now, I do have titanium white from Pro Acryl, but I think we're gonna do one step down, which is going to be this Company Gray. This is the color I use basically to paint on my white, to be honest. Anytime I need to paint white, this is the color I use. It's a slightly bluey white, but I think it looks nice and it's kind of soft. So. All right, so same thing as before, kind of. All right, gonna get some on our brush, but this time we're gonna pull some of it off. Not a ton, but some, and then we're gonna start going to town. Now, you can kind of see some of the. Ooh, that's very bright. Some of the areas, right, that are gonna kind of start standing out. Right, and just being very gentle as we do this, right? Again, we're going to kind of make sure we get all the different faces of the model as well. You can see it's transforming from just pure brown into like an actual kind of like skeleton color. And most importantly there, it's picking up, sorry, I got to take him apart to get his waist here. You can see it's picking up the detail and the edges and stuff like that. As there gets to be less and less paint on the palette, I'm just dabbing it directly. All right, and we get some good color modulation, which is the main thing we want. All right, we also move him a little bit from the kind of really browny that he was to more of kind of like a white, which I think is pretty cool. All right. Okay, it's looking pretty good there. Pretty happy with that. Okay. Put him off to the side and we'll keep going. Now, obviously, if you're doing both of these at the same time, you'd probably do this in a couple of sittings, right? You'd probably do your initial dry brush and then come back, or for both models, and then come back, start the wash on the first model, do the wash on the second model, come back, right? Like you'd probably, that one's very bright. Probably just do it in a couple of steps, right? And you wouldn't run into the little bit of activation issue I had. It was very little though, and it was, people complain about Army Painter paints reactivating, or at least they did a while ago. It's not really a thing anymore. It's literally just because I didn't give it enough time. Like I chose to do it way too soon. That's why it happened. Yeah, you know what? Let's do a frosty kind of eye. I think that's kind of cool. I don't think I've ever done that before. And since this white kind of has a little bit of a bluey tinge, I think that'll look really cool. Now, if you liked the just super dirty skeleton, you could have stopped at that step, but I like the dry brush step. I think it helps pick out the edges and it helps convey like more color modulation, which is what I want in a skeleton, right? Like a skeleton shouldn't ever really be clean, you know? Like unless maybe you're in the sand or something, right? Like had it been bleached by the sun coming overhead and stuff, and like the sand blowing on your bones, maybe, but I don't know. I think they should always have a little bit of dirt and nastiness here and there. All right, let's put them together and see how he's looking. I am quite happy with that. Yeah, it's pretty damn cool. Yeah, looking pretty damn good. Yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, it looks pretty damn cool, I ain't gonna lie. All right, now let's get some more of our detail colors. So, Okay. All right. So we'll set him off to the side. So our Skelebones, out of the box Skelebones. Pretty freaking great, huh? All right, pretty happy with that. You know what? It might actually look really cool if we do like a really light white dry brush on top of that. I don't know if it'll come through or not. Let's try it. Let's try it. We'll break out some of the white and we'll give it a shot. And we'll see if it comes through. I don't know if it will, but it might. All right, and then we kind of have like a two-tone white thing going on maybe. So this is Bold Titanium White from ProAcryl. This is the best pure white you can get. I have never found a better one. If you do, please tell me, because this is like the best that I've ever found. But it is very, very bold. So you're going to have to be gentle. Not like that. We'll reattach his head in a minute. You can see him just kind of like hitting around, right? And it's giving him just little bits of highlighting here and there. That would probably be a lot more noticeable without the spaceship gray, or I guess they call it company gray now. It used to be called spaceship gray, that I did over it. But yeah, just some more color modulation on our Skelebones here, which I think is pretty darn cool as I shoot his hand off. There we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Quite happy with that worm bone look. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Alright, so now we need to rip his face apart. So we can put his eyes back in. Now we could just do this with the red eyes, but I don't know. I like the Death Knight idea. That sounds like fun. So we'll pull his head apart here. Okay, and then we'll paint his eyes in. So I want to do the area around the eye as like a darker blue, and then I want to do the eye itself as like a bright blue. So I think what we'll do is we will hit the area with darker blue first. Now I don't want to completely fill up the eye socket, but I just want the area around the hole to be dark blue. Now you could completely fill up the eye socket and it would give him kind of like a little bit of a glowing eye effect, but that's not really what I'm going for here. I just kind of want the area around the eye to be dark blue. The area around the actual eye itself. So you can kind of see how much deeper that hole looks now, right, with the dark blue around it. we go. There we go. All right. And then we'll switch over to the actual eyes. Now these are a piece of clear plastic, but he doesn't really have any light piping or anything, so the clear plastic doesn't really do a whole lot. So the fact is clear plastic doesn't really do anything. So we're going to ignore the clear plasticness of this for now, and we're just going to paint these blue. And then once we're going to give that a couple minutes to dry, and then we'll pop them in his face. There we go. There we go. All right. Now, I said there was other washes we wanted to use, and there is. First, we're going to go ahead and we're going to break out Rust Tone. I'm going to use this on the weapons that we were working on. Now, we're not going to dilute this down at all. I'm just going to use it as is. Now, we're not going to put this everywhere because this is actually kind of like a stain. But we're going to put it on all of the blots of the orange rust, and then we're going to kind of put it around it too. So we want to kind of paint where the orange rust is, and then sort of like messily paint that area because we want it kind of around it as well. And this is a very heavy staining brown wash. Which is one of the reasons we're not diluting it down. Now you can tend to see this better on lighter surfaces. So since we started this off with the death metal, you're not going to see this as much as you would as if this whole thing had been like silver, right? But it's still going to be there. You're still going to see it a little bit. And most importantly, it's going to pull down the orange. So the orange is not as bright. And it kind of like fills in the gaps in the orange. You'll see, it looks cool. All right, there we go. All right, now we're going to do that because it's going to take a minute to dry. And while it's drying, we're going to break out our other wash. So this is actually a speed paint. And I often use speed paints for washes. The trick is you just have to thin them down with medium. So this is Brownish Decay. This is my favorite, this is my favorite, do the inside of skeletons color. I know it's a weird thing for someone to have a favorite color of, but I do, so anytime I need to paint, the inside of a rib cage on a skeleton or something like that, this is the color I use. It's also the color I use lots of times for stuff like monster claws and monster teeth and stuff like that, so. All right, so we're actually going to pull them apart a little bit because we're going to start being a little neater here. So I want to get his teeth, and I want to get things like the inside of his mouth here, so that that kind of stands out. All right, so we're going to do stuff like inside his nose. I would do inside his eye sockets, but since we just did the blue in there, it kind of is accompanying the same goal. We're going to do the inside of his ribs here. And this one we're just going to kind of smatter it all in there. And be a little messy with it here. Just because we want to kind of like shadow these, right? This dry brush kind of stippling method that I've been doing today, this is actually a good method to do from a dark base coat because you actually just are adding color on top of something. So because of that, the dark base coat is really nice. You don't have to go back and try to make the insides look dark like I'm doing here essentially, right? Because I'm basically like doing faux shadow here, right, to make the inside look dark. And then we're going to do the same thing with his pelvis here. Right, we want to get these kind of little pelvis holes there. Little pelvis holes, right? Anywhere we think there probably should be a shadow, we want to get. And we'll hit some of the spots in the spine. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, we'll try shoving his eyes back in now. This eyepiece is hard to get that hold of, by the way. There we go. Wow! Yeah, that's good. I like that. A really cool custom thing you could do for these would be to knock out some of the teeth. Or maybe give him like a gold tooth or something would be pretty cool. But yeah. So, that is my pretty much completed Skelebones. I think that looks fantastic. I am super in love with that. Might have overdid it with the white a little bit for the dry brushing, but I think that looks pretty damn cool. Now the wash for these is not fully dry yet. But there he is with his cleaver. All right. And I am quite happy with that. There he is right there. And then here is his skeleton unpainted brother. There they are. And there's the skeleton bros. And now the nice thing is once you hit this guy with a top coat, you're really never going to have to worry about, like, unless you super abuse him, you're not going to have to worry about the paint coming off because of how we chose to do it, right? We're not doing like a full coat paint. We're just doing the dry brushes and the washes. So, yeah. And there you go. That's your Skelebones. And yeah, you can see how this kind of stained. Like, see it there? You can see the staining and how it fills in and darkens down the orange. It looks pretty sweet. Right? You can see it pretty good on that one too. All right, we've got a little bit of silver still on the edge though. Maybe I'll actually hit that. Make the edge a tiny bit brighter. Let's do that before we call it for the day. Yeah, let's make the edge on the weapons a little tiny bit brighter. Now we could also do like blood effects on the edge. But I don't know if these guys have red blood, like conceptually, if these robots have red blood. So, I think I'm going to hold off on doing that. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here a little bit. I'm kind of hitting it with like the edge of the brush. This is just an edge highlighting trick. So you can kind of get the edge a different color without having to pay too much attention to it. And now I'm completely undoing everything I just did. Cool. Alright, ignore everything I say. Everything I say is a lie. See, that's what you're supposed to do. But you're supposed to do it with more paint on your brush. So you get a nice kind of edge, right? There we go. And there we go. And there's our fully painted nightmare skeleton. I am quite happy with that. That looks super damn cool. Doesn't have to be yelling either. He can be. And he can join my painted dragon guy, who also needs to be top coated still. Oh. So yeah, so they can be friends. They can be friends. But yeah, painted dragon guy also needs top coat. He is a mostly full paint. I didn't paint his joints, but all his armor and stuff was painted on him. So yeah, the nice thing is with the paint, you can use it to pull out a couple extra pieces that probably should be armor colored but weren't on the default figure. So that's pretty sweet. But anyway, yeah, he'll join my painted dragon guy. And yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, super, super fun. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it. We'll end with him looking up with his cleaver. There he goes, looking pretty damn good, might I say. But I'm going to go ahead and call it there. So about hour and a half with some dry time, including building the skeleton and doing all the weapons. So not too terrible. Could have definitely done that faster, if not streaming and stuff. But yeah, definitely super fun. So thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go get some lunch with my husband, and I will see you guys next weekend.